Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Since his release from federal prison, Leonard Peltier has picked up where he left off when it comes to his Native American activism a half-century ago, unapologetically railing against a social and government system stacked against Native people. At the same time, he marvels at the progress in Native representation and legal standing in everyday life. We'll hear from Peltier about his life in prison and what's happened since his release earlier this year. Coming up right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Hundreds of people remain displaced a week after the remnants of a typhoon wreaked havoc on some of Alaska's most remote and vulnerable communities. Reporter Emily Schwing has this update.
One of the hardest hit communities is Kipnuk, a village that sits in the heart of Alaska's Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Last week, tribal administrator Tristan Carl made the tough decision to mass evacuate his friends and family. Now he says they have several needs, including housing, clothing, and transportation, as well as access to foods that aren't found in conventional grocery stores.
I know we're going to be missing some our subsistence food. Hopefully some locals will be able to drop some off or even invite some families for some. And that's how we lived off for many centuries.
James Amick is also from Kipnuk. He, his friends, and family are still reeling from the storm.
It's going to be in our minds for a while, But the way I think we can get through that is if we talk to our behavioral health and just get everything off of our mind. I think that would help us.
Alaska's governor declared a state disaster and has requested a federal disaster declaration from the Trump administration. Alaska's congressional delegation has also penned a letter to the president in support of a federal disaster declaration. In Anchorage, I'm Emily Schwing.
Meanwhile, when it comes to Native co-management of fish and wildlife in the state, engagement and unity are key. That was the message at a panel about subsistence at the recent Alaska Federation of Natives convention. Ayolna Naiden with the Alaska Desk has more.
Representatives from several Alaska Native organizations called for a unified approach alongside government agencies to manage wildlife and fish when they met last week. Clinton Cook Sr. is the Craig Tribal Association president. He emphasized the importance of prioritizing Alaska Native voices when making decisions about wildlife.
Our people have always managed our lands. We know where the salmon run. We know where the deer are. We know when the clams are safe.
Cook says the first step is engagement. He encourages tribal residents to participate in advisory councils for both federal and state regulatory agencies.
So you have a voice in what happens in your region. That's huge.
A push for resource development in several Alaska regions has been met with opposition from some tribal groups. Karen Linnell is the executive director of the Atna Intertribal Resource Commission. She called for a composed and unified response in the middle of a quickly changing political environment.
With the current administration, the next couple years, we need to try to hold our ground with where we're at and not lose.
Representatives talked about funding challenges, lack of guidelines, and the need to re-educate regional directors when they change with the new administrations. Linnell says that one strategy that has made the difference over the years is collaborating with neighboring regions and figuring out how to continue practicing traditional ways of life without harming resources other regions rely on.
Wait a minute, you do duck calls, right? When you're out duck hunting, we call a moose in. So why is it different? When we started to support each other, we started to see change.
Promoting change also requires research, Linnell says. She hopes that more tribal organizations will have capacity to monitor wildlife and fish and collect their own data that they can trust. In Anchorage, I am Ayolna Naiden.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by Drummond Woodsum, a full-service law firm whose nationally recognized tribal nations practice provides services to tribal nations and their enterprises and to companies that do business with tribes across the country. More at dwmlaw.com. Support for law and justice-related programming provided by Hobbs, Strauss, Dean & Walker, LLP, a national law firm dedicated to promoting and defending tribal rights for over 40 years. More information available at hobbsstrauss.com.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. There is no greater symbol of a modern-day Native American warrior than Leonard Peltier. He spent nearly 50 years in federal prison, convicted of murdering 2 FBI agents during a 1975 shootout at the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. He has always maintained his innocence, and his case attracted international attention. Over the decades, Peltier drew support from human rights leaders and everyday supporters who worked that entire time to set him free. Finally, in the last moments of his administration, President Joe Biden commuted his sentence in January. Today, we are grateful to sit down to talk with him about life after prison and the movement that started 50 years ago, and where everything else goes from here. We won't be taking calls today, but you can join this conversation on our social media pages and our website, nativeamericacalling.com. Joining us now from the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota is Leonard Peltier. He is a longtime Native rights activist. He is a citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians. Leonard, hello, and welcome to Native America Calling.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm also Dakota. My mother was Dakota from Spirit Lake, also North Dakota. So I'm of two very great tribes, and thank you for allowing me to be on this program. I've heard a lot about you, and it's my honor to be here too. So.
Well, Leonard, I've heard a lot about you too, so I appreciate that you're familiar with our show. And let's talk. I mean, here it is. You've had some time now to settle into your home, meet with family and friends. What has this transition been like for you after serving so many years in federal prison?
Well, first of all, I would like to state that I've declared my innocence from the beginning. My co-defendants also declared theirs, and they were found not guilty by reasons of self-defense. That was no longer a crime scene, but they went ahead and illegally, I might add, extradited me from Canada and prosecuted me. I've had, as I've been saying, I'm innocent, and now I've had, in the last 5 or so years, I've had the lead prosecutor, the attorney that was Attorney General of the time, Nichols, declared that I'm innocent. I committed no crimes there. So all of my declarations of being innocent have been proven by all the prosecutors who have admitted to wrongdoing and witnesses and everything. So I served 49 years, 2 months illegally in prison, and I'm now home. And to get out of this prison, to get out of that prison, was an experience that I'm sure not many people in history has experienced. And it's I didn't know whether this was real or it was just a dream or whatever. I couldn't believe it at first, and I'm just now starting to get used to being out of prison, and it's amazing that I got out. Period, because they were not going to release me unless I admitted to something I didn't do, and that I would accuse or point out somebody that was totally innocent and wanted me to testify against them and everything like that. I said I would not do that.
Mm-hmm.
I will not do what you did to me. To me, to commit that type of crime was treason. So I refuse to do anything like that to satisfy the government.
Leonard, so many of the details of your case have been argued and analyzed to such a great degree. Is there anything, though, that you wish had come out that didn't?
Well, yes, I'm glad you asked that question. Good question. We've also found out that judges were involved in this whole conspiracy to. They had to convict somebody. We got evidence of this. They said, well, this is our last chance to get a conviction, put the full weight of the American government on Leonard Peltier. And when they say that, you don't have any rights. You don't have it. I didn't have no rights whatsoever. As it is, Native Americans have no justice in the justice system. We are the only people in the United States who do not get prosecuted by the jury of peers. We get indicted in a grand jury, which is white folks, non-native people, judges, prosecutors, defense lawyers, and juries. We're the only people in the United States this happens to, as of date anyway. We're still trying to correct that. We're still trying to make things different. I'm not saying that everybody's guilty, innocent, but we still deserve a fair trial, no matter what we're charged to. That's what the Constitution of the United States says. That applies to a lot of people except Native Americans, and we're still working on trying to get that corrected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Leonard, are you saying that perhaps you might be filing charges at some point in the future with regard to these allegations?
Yes, that's being developed now. I have something like 14 constitutional violations. Like, as I said, every prosecutor has admitted now to falsifying evidence, to and admitting to evidence that was falsified. And so I'm preparing for that now.
Okay.
Trying to get this. I got the lawyers now that want to come and get involved in this. Yeah.
Let me ask you now, here you are at home, Turtle Mountain. Are you surprised at all about what life is like there now, as opposed to what it was like the last time you were there as a much younger man or even as a child? Did you anticipate how the community would look today and how the interaction would be?
I am, of course, I was pretty isolated, but I was kept aware of a lot of things that happened, and I was even to the fact where I continued to do activist work from prison cell, like save the children, abuse mothers, and different organizations I help organize from a prison cell. But I never really heard of the real progress we made. I've heard of a little bit, but I still thought, well, we've been fighting this for 500 years, so any kind of little gains we made is really not much, but it's portrayed it as a big gain for us. But when I got out and seen some of the things that's going on, I'm shocked. I went just this last weekend. I went to a powwow, and there's over 10,000 people there. I never seen anything like that. Thousands, hundreds and hundreds of dancers and old people, young people, kids, out there dancing, and it was amazing to be able to see something like such art. All the preaching and fighting. And it's not only my generation. Now I'm not going to sit here and say it was totally up to us. We were just another generation that took over from our past generations that taught us a lot of these dances, kept our languages alive and everything. We were just another generation that that did the same thing. But to see this, the Inupiat sweat lodges, the sun dancers, there's thousands of people dancing and singing and praying, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I can't believe it, man, because I remember the generation before me when there was people going to the sweat lodge. There was only 4 or 5 people in there. That was how look how close they came to abolishing our religion and our cultural and everything like this. That was a generation before me, and then today it's wow. We did this. Sacrifice wasn't for nothing, and I'm so happy. I would not hesitate to fight for my people again. I'm still going to fight for you, but I can't. I can only be a voice. That's all I can be. The spokesman.
What do you think when you see now today, not just at powwows like you mentioned, but just every day, are women proudly wearing ribbon skirts and other cultural attire? Are men too, every day wearing regalia, proud of their Native American heritage? How does that make you feel?
Well, again, it's amazing to me. And you got to remember this too. Back in my day, when this was extremely rare, and along comes these hippies. They were a whole generation of young white people that were helped us by started wearing native regalia and practicing native cultures and it was a big gift to us. It was a big lift to our fight to regain our culture because our languages and everything. Because they were out there, they came from rich families and important families, even political families. Their children, they came forward. That was the hippies. And they came. They give us a big help there. We should always remember they hated them because they were doing that. People that was trying to exterminate us hated them because this is what they were doing. We got to say thanks to them guys. Yeah, we do. They helped us, man. I got a lot of arguments with other neighbors. They're stealing our culture. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Leonard, we've got to take a short break, but we'll be right back and we'll continue this conversation.
Okay.
Research finds a lack of trust in law enforcement and healthcare professionals is among hurdles facing Native American women experiencing domestic violence. At a time when federal funding for outreach and prevention is disappearing, some tribal programs are filling the gaps. We'll learn more on the next Native America Calling.
Buju gikaganawen dagon jabwate shimagoyen. Ganoje no kida ni shinabe akwazi wigamigung jigikendaman dawaj ge ijichigayen jabwate shimagoyen gedudu shing. Nawaj jigikendaman mawadishawen healthcare.gov/coverage gema ganoj 1-800-318-2596. Gaunde Nagadeg, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Thank you for listening to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. We're talking with Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa citizen and longtime Native rights activist Leonard Peltier about his life now after nearly a half century of incarceration. This is a recorded conversation, so we won't be taking calls. But please engage with us on our social media pages and continue this conversation there. Leonard, I want to ask you about your movements. They are still restricted. How has the home confinement part of the process affected you? What's that working like? And to what extent are you able to move about throughout the community and elsewhere?
Well, one of the things before I would sign my release papers was I would not sign. I told them, I'm not signing this paper if you're going to take my First Amendment rights away or my religious rights. And they said, no, we're not taking them away from you. And I said, what about a bracelet? Am I going to be wearing chains and everything? And they said, no. So I said, okay, I'll sign it. But my movement is still very restricted. I can't go to the post office without calling and telling them that I went to the post office to get my mail and or whatever grocery shopping. And if I want to go 100 miles away from our borders, I have to get a pass. Like if I got a couple of appointments coming up for the Mayo Clinic because I've had a serious eye problem. Some vessels broke behind my eyes because of diabetes, and I need. They said they could treat it though, so I'm hoping that that is that happens. If not, there's other places we're going to try for other treatments, and I fell and I broke both of my ankles, but I'm healing on that now. I'm starting to walk without walker or whatever. And what happened there is my body, I ran out of iron in my body, so but they gave me some IVs and everything, so I got that back to level. But I'm starting to walk a lot better, and otherwise I'm pretty good health, I guess. So I should be around a little bit longer than people hoped.
50 years, you spent half a century behind bars, and during that time, there were moments, there were events when it looked like you might be freed from prison. I imagine that must have been enormously stressful to be in a state of limbo like that for such a long period of time. What got you through that, and how did you maintain your hope and your inspiration?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. Our struggle is real. Everything that we talk about, we release for history and everything. We got documented history of this stuff, how they treated, enslaved us, and murdered us by the millions with diseases, and all that stuff is real. And when I got arrested, I wasn't making nothing up. I wasn't creating myself to be a political prisoner. That stuff is real. And then what they did to me only proved to me that everything that's we were speaking about, the American Indian movement and trying to get out there to the public, was real. So each time I was denied, Ronald Reagan promised to let me go, and he denied, and he lied to an international presidential leader of Russia that he was going to turn me loose, and then Bill Clinton. But Bill Clinton was also had problems that the FBI controlled him. So did Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, if you remember, was involved with Colonel North. Colonel North was bringing in drugs by the ton, cocaine and stuff. Well, soon he pled guilty, so nobody can say he wasn't guilty. And as soon as he pled guilty, Ronald Reagan let him out on the pardon. But Clinton had his own problems, and he promised to let me go. And so each time that I went through this, it only infuriated me and kept me strong from getting weak. And I could have got out years ago. All I had to do was plead guilty or accuse somebody else. I said, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, give us a name, any name. And I said, oh, you want me to do the same thing you did to me? Just make somebody up. And I said, that ain't happening, man. You can kiss my ass. That ain't happening. So this last time was about 6 years ago. They wanted me to do it again. And I said, no, I'm not, that's treason to me to do something like that. And I refused to do it. And I thought I was going to die in prison. But that's what kept me strong, is every time they committed a crime against me and my people, because that involves my people. It involves anything they do to one native involves all of our people. And that's what kept me strong. That's what kept me willing to go all the way. I thought I was going to die in prison. I really didn't think I was getting out. I thought This is it.
Leonard, what do you think made the difference? Why finally, after all these previous presidential administrations, why Joe Biden? Why January 2025?
Well, the support had grown enormously, even though United Nations did a I don't know how many year examination into the facts, and so you can't just go to these judges or to or at least to the world judges or world courts or governments. You can't just go, but I'm innocent. They've got me in prison for illegal. They investigate. They investigate thoroughly because they don't want to be exposed as being making false accusations against the government. United Nations did an enormous investigation on me. They demanded my freedom, and they actually demanded me to be paid. But that was only about 3, 4 years ago. But it was completely behind people like that behind me around the world that finally we made one last effort with Holly. I told Holly what I had given up really. I was laid in the cell and I had a day and a half left before he got out, and I said, "Well, I guess anything could happen now. So this is where I died." And I wasn't feeling good. I was really getting weak. It was you can't get the medical treatment you need when you're in prison. You just can't. Even though I had a bunch of them looking out for me and everything like this, but I just said, well, uh, it's not going to happen. And then one of the Muhammad prisoners that lived next door, he come to me and he said, we opened the cell for an hour and a half of recreation. And he said, Leonard, don't give up. He says, the word is out there that if they don't let you out, it's going to be political suicide for the Democratic Party because people by the millions are going to move away from him. So stuff like that helped. I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. And I told Holly, I said, try one more thing. Tell them, give me commutation of sentence and home confinement. And that's what I got out on, home confinement. So I'm actually still in prison, but I'm a lot freer than I ever was. I can sit here and talk to you. They stopped me from even making press statements about 15 years ago. Yeah, because people they were exposing them. They were exposing what they did. You know, the evidence is overwhelming. They can't deny it. The only way they could deny it was by silencing me, and that's what they did. They tried to do. I'm still here though. I made it out the door, and I'm talking to the media.
Leonard, you mentioned your health care, and it sounds like you're perhaps getting better care now that you're out of prison than what you got in prison. And I'm curious, are you going to perhaps an Indian Health Service facility, or do you have Native American healthcare providers that are taking care of you right now?
Well, yes, I do, but there's a big chance that's all we're going to lose all that. There's a big there's a possibility it's overwhelming, and I'll be back to just normal treatment. Right now, I've got health care workers for me, but I do have a strong following with the American Indigenous Movement, formerly AIM, and they promised, they and our supporters have promised me that if this happens, they will raise the funds somehow to get me the medical treatment I need. So,
okay. Leonard, I want to quote a poem that you wrote in prison. You said, I have no present. I have only a past and perhaps a future. The present has been taken from me. How about now? Do you feel now that you have a present? Or does that poem still ring true to you?
Well, actually, the proper way to answer that is that I have a presence. It's limited to what my present and my future is right now. It's limited to which is illegal, by the way. What they're doing to me is totally illegal. There ain't no such thing as a parole board. There's not in the federal system. It's been repealed for over 30 some years. So this is a fraudulent agency that's still in power in the government of the United States of America. You want to talk about corruption? Look at this. Look at this, people. Well, this is a government agency that's been repealed for over 30 years and ordered by the courts to release us within 5 years after it was repealed. And I'm still living under these type of conditions. Uh, so uh, I don't know. I'm getting ready to go to court and try to get him out of court. I should win now that I'm out of prison, but uh, it's a semi-freedom is what I got, I guess you want to call it. It's better than prison cell. I'll tell you that. A million times better than prison cell. So that I can't complain about. Yeah, now I'm on your show.
So many of the prominent figures from the American Indian movement have walked on. Dennis Banks, Russell Means, Clyde Belcourt, to name just a few. Looking back now, what would you like people to remember about the movement and some of the leaders?
Well, Dennis and I was very, very close, and Vernon, and they were powerful speakers. I was involved in numerous different organizations before we got involved in the American Indian movement. We built a center in Washington State that still exists today. We overtook some land back then, and back in those days, and plus fishing and hunting and termination. I was involved in all that before I got with the American Indian movement. But what inspired me was Dennis and Vernon's powerful speaking. It was what I believed in, and contrary to popular belief, because of what the government propaganda they put out against us, the American Indian movement only went to different reservations after being invited by the elders and the traditionalists. That bullshit about we go in there and force our ideology on them and stuff is a lie. It's an outright lie. And we only went after being invited. And I believed in that. I believed that we should not go in. And I found out later that, geez, the majority of places we went into, I'd say 99.9% believed the same thing we did. It was easy to organize there. It was easy to get. We were a pretty big organization now. After during and after Wounded Knee, I mean, we were this whole continent, all the way down. There's a huge number of full-blooded Indians all down Central America, Canada. They all were joining up with us. They were, we were in solidarity. People got to understand that we're Native peoples. We're all the same blood. It's just different tribes. That's all. Yeah.
And it's interesting to note, of course, Leonard, that there are still AIM chapters around. What do you see as the role of AIM today? And even just the way activism has changed now here 50 years later. We have social media, we have internet. There's just so many other ways for people to organize, Native people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that stuff's going to help, and it should help. I mean, just for example, just at the powwow that I just came from, I went to the religious service. That's why I was invited there and got a pass for there. I went to the religious service that we had there, but just being there, we got the shows. We got 2.7 million people hit on us, so it's on the websites, Facebook, whatever they're called, and it shows me that there is a large group of young people that are still want to be active, and that there's a stronger way for us to communicate. And we have never been advocates of violence, never, but we do believe in self-defense. We believe we have a right to defend ourselves. And these people have been trying to kill us for over 500 years. So we have a right to stand up and protect our people. And I think it's going to be necessary again, because there's a lot of stuff that they're doing to try to abolish our treaties and abolish our way of life. And we're going to have to fight back on this thing. And I think we need to, and we should become more united than we ever were, because it's going to happen, people. Just listen to what's happening. Just listen to what he's saying. It's going to happen to us if we don't unite. We got to unite. Some states, we got power. We got the power to choose who the leadership of the Senate and Congress is. We got to take this and use it to our safety, to our livelihood. We have to unite. That's all. It's just, there is no other answer. We got to unite.
We're speaking now with Leonard Peltier, citizen of the Turtle Mountain
Nation.
Band of Chippewa Indians. Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians. Almost stumbled there, Leonard, but we're going to take another break here.
We're nations. We're nations. I make that same mistake, so I don't still want to call us Indians. Myself, we're not Indians, man. We are a nation of people. We're just different tribes. Look at the Constitution, what it says. They shall only make treaties with sovereign nations. They made numerous treaties with us. Unfortunately, they didn't abide by them, violated them immediately, but they still made treaties with us. We are nations of people. And young people have got to step up there now, man. Some of us are getting too old. We could just, not much we can do but be your spokesman,
Leonard, we're going to take another break. We're going to come back and continue this conversation. I'm enjoying talking with you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Support by the American Indian College Fund. The American Indian College Fund provides millions of dollars of scholarships to thousands of Native students every year. Tribal citizens of every age and experience are eligible. The deadline for applications is May 31st, and you can find everything you need to apply at collegefund.org. That's collegefund.org, or by phone at 800-766-FUND. Education is the answer.
You're listening to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. We're speaking with Leonard Peltier. We now want to expand that discussion and bring in Holly Cook Macaro. She is from the Red Lake Band of Ojibwe. She joins us from New York. She is a political strategist and was part of the larger effort to secure Leonard Peltier's release. Holly, hello. Welcome back to Native America Calling. You've been on the show before.
Anin Buju, Sean, it's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Holly, what did this take? I mean, rallies, organizations formed, appeals, briefs, many high-powered legal teams over the decades. What finally had to happen? What cards had to fall into place in order to get this action by President Biden that finally got Leonard out of prison?
It took all of those things. Nick and I and the team at Indian Collective, which is absolutely magic, we were happy to help bring it across the finish line on those last 5 yards. But, we stood on the shoulders of decades of activists who kept Leonard's name at the forefront in terms of the rallies and everything else. The legal teams who created that record, who brought light to the injustice and the railroading by the United States federal government against Leonard specifically, and keeping him in prison for 5 decades. All of those things, we stood on all of that work, and it came together at a time. And I think it's a great kind of picture of the political evolution of Indian country as well. But I'm part of a cohort of folks of natives, young natives who went to DC in the 90s. We worked on the Hill, we worked in the agencies, we put together the experience and built the relationships. I was in the Clinton White House. There have been many in every White House after. There have been other natives working in that capacity as well. But it meant that we could support both Deb Haaland to become the first Native American cabinet member. And her voice was absolutely critical in weighing in with President Biden. She earned his respect during her tenure as Secretary of the Interior, and had always been a supporter of freedom for Leonard, both in her personal capacity and when she was in the House of Representatives. So I kind of, there's a whole, up and down of how this happened. I always say that when I began the work 3.5 years ago, it was for me almost 4, I had a power map, and it was huge. It was tribal leaders, it was members of Congress, it was, the activists, the voices, it was, and certainly one thing is the power of Leonard's own voice, and the positions that he held were inspirational to generations of activists and supporters around the world. And that has always struck me. And by the time we got down to, the weekend before, my power map was 6 people that were going to be in the room with President Biden when he made this decision. And we really, I say we finally beat him at the table. We had the FBI opposed us till the very end, but we were able to tap into, and we knew the game. We knew what it was taking to move this within the White House. We had members of Congress, Senator Schatz, and others in the United States Senate, Congressman Grijalva, Congresswoman McCollum. There in both chambers. We had folks who were fighting and weighing in all through that whole time. Senator Warren, Senator Tina Smith from Minnesota. We were pretty focused in who we reached out to, and knowing who was closest to the president from his time in the U.S. Senate. And those are the folks we asked to weigh in. So it was a combination of putting all of that together, packaging this up, being about justice for Leonard Peltier, and telling the story and making it so there was a path forward and a path. And as Leonard said, we were called and asked, is there anything less we can do than clemency? What are the options here? And Leonard was, we knew a pardon politically was very difficult. Leonard was never going to admit to something he didn't do. Clemency, in the first place, or, decades ago, it was something that was hard for, as he will tell you himself, hard for Leonard to stomach, because of justice. True justice for Leonard is an acknowledgement of his innocence and what the federal government has done to him. But as he points out, he is home. He's on your show today, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. This whole series of activities, everything it took to get Leonard released, that in itself is a book to be written. That's a story to be told. That's a movie to be made. What do you also want to say just about the overall increased power of Native voices in the political realm, and the economic power that we wield now as Native people, as well as political and social power?
But that's a huge mouthful. The political power, I think, we're approaching the 40th anniversary of the passage of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which brought our voices to the table in a way that was kind of a next step from what the American Indian movement, our largest, civil rights and Red Power movement, did in the late 60s into the 70s. And when we got to the passage of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and it brought Indian country to the table with dollars as well as votes and activism, right? We had kind of empathy, we had all those things. And there were some bumps in the road as tribes figured that out. But now we see tribes on the state level who are running very sophisticated ballot initiatives and winning in states like California and Arizona and Minnesota, and all tribes know how to be effective at both the state and the federal level. And it's a thing that you can map out. And so while we are also flexing our power at the polls and that sort of organization, and really demanding more of every political party, that we are not showing up just because one party asks, or there is some sense that there is a legacy of history, but we are demanding that candidates learn about Indian country. So that's part of it as well. And so Indian country's economic power that still The largest economic driver in Indian country remains Indian gaming. We are in a situation now where there are more threats to it than ever with sports betting, mobile gaming, etc. And that's another conversation. But we have made, in terms of the political evolution, all of those things coming together and having and supporting folks that go to Washington, D.C., that demystify that relationship with the federal government and can bring that back home and be effective as representatives, as voices, and in teaching about how we can effectively pull the levels of power in Washington, D.C. as Indian people and telling our own stories. We remain the best at telling our own stories about impacts of the federal government in Indian country and on the ground as we deal with the shutdown, as we deal with the reductions in Medicaid. All of those things are a part of a larger picture of the political evolution in Indian country, which certainly is very much tied to the economic piece as well. So we go from the importance, and I think Leonard's piece, I think that, supporting Deb Haaland and the massive effort that it took in a first of its kind, where we tied in activist groups on the ground with DC insiders who knew the game, and the folks who could drive social media with messages and thought leading efforts in that regard. You kind of saw that with Deb and the effort to support her nomination, and then we really activated that again with Leonard. It was the visibility that came with activism on the ground. It was working with the unprecedented number of Native American political appointees in the Biden administration. And, we had the rallies, we had the marches, we had the very effective action in front of the White House on September 12th, 2023, that really caught the attention of the White House. We engaged with the Senate and the House. We pushed every button. And then we engaged with our allies around Amnesty International. Was hugely helpful in both resources and manpower and expertise and their voice. So all of that comes together, I think, in that larger picture of economic power, political power, the building and the evolution of Indigenous political power that allowed us to, I think, really be effective and beat them at the table.
Thanks, Holly. Leonard, I want to go back to you and ask about those who still speak out against your release. The FBI has a default position that they've maintained over the decades. How do you cope with that opposition? And to those who continue to hold on to such animosity toward you and had so much control over your fate?
One of the things that people should understand and know about is that not all of them have been negative about my freedom. It's just a few individuals that try to use us because they hate Native people to start with. But the regional director of the FBI, Don Edwards, was a huge supporter. He said they asked him on the media, supporting somebody that's been found guilty of killing 2 of your agents. He said, I worked there. I know what they did to Leonard. And there's about a dozen other FBI agents that have supported me. But with the huge group of people that's around the world that came to support, because they studied the case, they started to believe that what we were saying from the beginning, they friggin' railroaded me. There is no evidence that I killed anybody. And as you know, I did not get a fair trial. There was admitted racists on the jury. The judges went shopping. The judges were having secret meetings with the FBI. How's that a fair trial? And that's what people got to understand. There was no evidence whatsoever that I could, as one agent said, Reynolds, Leonard Peltier did not commit no crimes on that reservation. They said, if you put anything in your investigation, we will withhold the $55 million we are sending you through the Joint Agricultural Laboratory. That's money laundering. That's another big crime and everything. So there was no evidence. Now they're saying I'm guilty of aiding and abetting. Well, who the hell serves 49 years in prison for aiding and abetting? Right? No, I'm the only guy in history, I guess. Yeah, that's what they're saying. Look at the record, bros and sisters. Look at the record. I ain't making this shit up. Yeah, it's all there, black and white or on tape. Aiding and abetting. He's always an aider and abetter. Aiding and abetter who? My co-defendants were found not guilty by reasons of self-defense. So I guess I was an aider and abetter of self-defense. And I got served 49 years for that? No, this is supposed to be a land of the free and justice for all, except for when it comes to us. Mm-hmm. We're eliminated from that. We don't get that. We don't get that justice for all. And that's what I'm proud of standing up for. That, you know, we want the world to know that what they did to us and what they continue to do to us did exist. The history proves it, and that's what kept me strong. That's what kept me willing to die there. I could have made it up too, but no, I said I ain't going to do that. I'm going to die here. So, but here I am, thanks to all these people, Indian Collective, all these organizations that came to my rescue. They've been doing it, though. They've been doing it. I'm not, but they just come in and jumped in there and got everything going again, got all the, just pushed everything to an explosive agenda to get me out, So.
Leonard, we talk a lot in Indian country about the future generations, right? It's not about us. It's not even about necessarily our children or our grandchildren. It's those future generations, 7 generations into the future. What do you want your legacy to be 7 generations from now among Native people? What do you want them to know and understand?
I want you to all know that when I took an oath to fight for my people and die for my people, I would not commit treason. I would not commit treason and lie for my own freedom. That's what I'm about, and that's what I want the world to know. And whatever, I wouldn't then, and I won't do it again. I will not. I will never do that. I don't. My people don't deserve that. Our people don't deserve that. I keep saying mine. We're all the same tribe now. Our people don't deserve that type of treason,
Leonard, what are your goals going forward? And are there any specific issues right now that you're focused on with regard to Native people?
Well, I want to tell them first thing is that we got to continue the policies of the American Indian movement. We have never went in and advocated violence, so we can't change that now, even though we're in great danger. But we can advocate self-defense. I'm too old now to go out there in the streets and demonstrate and do whatever the hell needs to be done. But I can be a voice for the people now. And that's what I intend to do. And I intend to do that till the day I die. We need to unite, is all I keep saying to everybody. We have to unite all tribes. We can be a strong political voice, but we have to come together no matter what. No matter what our differences are, our cultures, our tribes, beliefs, whatever else. We have to come together on this. And we got big support out there from non-Indian people. Can't forget them. There's millions of people out there that support Native people. So we've got to unite with them.
We're out of time, so I just want to thank you very much, Leonard Peltier, and also Holly Cook Macaro for joining us here today on Native America Calling. Appreciate it very much.
Yoksha, Kola. Yoksha.
With that, we're going to wrap it up. We're out of time, listeners. So join us again for the next episode of Native America Calling. And until then, I'm your host, Sean Spruce.
Every family caregiver could use help finding the necessary resources to care for their loved one. The AARP Family Caregiver Resource Guide helps family caregivers access key programs, services, and agencies in their communities. A copy of the guide is available by calling 877-333-5885 or online at aarp.org/caregiverresources. AARP supports this show.
Once agnixi mankuwayazan ye apiki yaniktelo. La kozani wawoki ki oboglakayo takucha yakachriki onichiapiktelo. Isama soliachihanta. Lilyayo healthcare.gov/nishlilyayo. Nishlil mas aphayo 1-800-318-2596. Lewot khaniki Medicare and Medicaid otietahi apelo.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.